Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion that will take place in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one, obviously, being the poetry discussion playlist, but number two being the Charles Bukowski playlist, a playlist of videos that circles around the dirty old man himself, Old Chucky Buck. Now, the poem in question today will be followed by a quote from Epictetus. So take that for what you will, and we will get there eventually. The poem in question is known as Cut While Shaving, and it reads as such. "It's never quite right," he said, "the way people look, the way the music sounds, the way the words are written. It's never quite right," he said, "all the things we are taught, all the loves we chase, all the deaths we die, all the lives we live. They are never quite right. They are hardly close to right. These lives we live, one after the other, piled there as history. The waste of the species, the crushing of the light and the way. It's not quite right. It's hardly right at all," he said. "Don't I know it?" I answered. I walked away from the mirror. It was morning. It was afternoon. It was night. Nothing changed. It was locked in place. Something flashed. Something broke. Something remained. I walked down the stairway and into it. "It's never quite right," he said, "the way people look." "Don't I know it?" I answered. I walked away from the mirror. He's talking to himself at the beginning of this poem about how everything is not quite right and how unjust that is. It's not quite right, all of the lives we live, all of the deaths that we die. It's not quite right. But isn't it? Despite the talk, nothing changed. It was locked in place. Something flashed, something broke, something remained. I walked down the stairway and into it. After this pep talk, our speaker here must enter the world as the world is. After this talk here about how unjust these things may or may not be, I guess it's how unjust they must be, because they are not quite right. After all of this, the assertion that these things are not right and the acceptance of the fact, no, these things are not right. They're not quite right. They just are as they are. Is as they is. It is what it is. After all of this, none of it matters. I walked down the stairway and into it. Here is a quote from our old buddy, Stoic philosopher Epictetus in the Enchiridion. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I have never heard it said. I've only read about it. So if that is incorrect, feel free to let me know. Epictetus tells us as such. Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and, in one word, whatever are not our actions. Things in our control are, by nature, free, unrestrained, unhindered. But those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others. Remember, then, that if you suppose that things which are slavish by nature are also free, and that what belongs to others is your own, then you will be hindered. You will lament, you will be disturbed, and you will find fault both with gods and men. But if you suppose that only to be your own which is your own, and what belongs to others, such as it really is, then no one will ever compel you or restrain you. Further, you will find fault with no one or accuse no one. You will do nothing against your will. No one will hurt you. You will have no enemies. You will not be harmed. That is the perfect summary for this poem. Our speaker starts off by acknowledging all of these things which are not quite right. These things which are not quite right, the lives in totality that we live, the deaths at the end of the day that we receive, things that are taught, the music, the looks, right? All of these things are not within our control. Maybe they are unjust. Maybe they are wrong. Maybe they are a hindrance. Maybe they are detrimental. Even if this is so, they are not within our control. Acknowledging that they are not within our control, we have nothing to do at the end of it but to walk down the stairway and in to the day. There's nothing left to be done. Those things are unjust, but they are nonetheless. It is unjust that there are people suffering in sub-Saharan Africa. It is unjust that the Communist Party in China is what it is. It is unjust that there is so much crime in so many places. I still have to live my life. I still have to do my things. I still have to do the best that I can. If one of my life goals, which is to change the way that literature is talked about, if I am to get there, I have to do this video today. I have to talk about Charles Bukowski, old Chucky Buck. I have to talk about how Charles Bukowski leads in very nicely to Stoicism, a series about which can be found on my personal channel, a link to which can be found in the description below. By the way, by the by, always there if you ever want to stop by. The parallels between Charles Bukowski and Stoicism are sometimes thrilling, because even when our speaker is not acting in a Stoic manner, there are many poems where the speaker, Chinaski, Charles Bukowski, in a wig and some costuming, is acting irrationally, is acting emotionally, is acting off the cuff. Not very Stoic, right? In those poems, however, we are not interpreting him as the good guy. We don't read those poems where he jumps out of his car and gets in somebody else's face, and the guy in that other car, the guy in that little sports car, shows him a gun. We're not saying he's made a great decision there, right? Maybe we are. This is sort of the beauty of literature, It's possible to read those poems and come away not with a bent towards the Stoic philosophies, but to say, yeah, you got to live your life. I mean, taking on the phenomenology, taking on the existentialism once in a while. All of these ideas. But these links between Charles Bukowski and Stoicism are sometimes so thick, dolloped on top of the literature, so thick. Even if, I mean, I don't think I've ever read a Stoic, like a literal Stoic reference in Bukowski. I'm pretty sure he's used the word Stoic. I don't know if I ever saw him use Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, any of those guys. So, one of the beautiful things about philosophy is how quickly it all boils down. Was Charles Bukowski really cognizant of the fact that he was throwing out Stoic ideals so often? I don't know. Maybe. He was well read. I don't know that he was well read in the Stoic philosophies. And look, I've probably read 20 poems where he did mention Marcus Aurelius, and I just can't remember him right now. But whether or not the philosophy is laced into the poem, meaning that Charles Bukowski, old Chucky Buck, the dirty old man, put it in there on purpose, is irrelevant. This poem itself is a Stoic trip. That's all I have for this discussion. If you like or appreciate what I do here on the channel, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more. There is poetry on the channel every Monday, and there are many more things going as it stands. And I hope to have you back for the next one.